just gonna light these candles before I do anything else, so that I get that part all set up for you. I love the sound of the matchbox. Alright, that part is done. Okay, so I thought that it was about time that I continued the infamous Fisherman and His Soul story, which I have started maybe over a year ago. I did one part and then I did a second part, and now I'm gonna do a third part and then maybe a fourth if I don't finish today. But first things first is pillow mist. Love this stuff. I never even knew there was such a thing, but it's a really, really cool thing. So I'm going to first get your blanket and spray some pillow mist, and then we're gonna get into the books and maybe some gentle singing with guitar later. So you just get yourself nice and settled and I'll get the blanket. Okay. So here we go. The usual blanket. Just wrap that around you. Okay. Alright, so are you warm enough with that? Okay, good. Okay, so if I'm not going to spray this in your face, but I'm just going to spray it around you. Okay. I don't know what that smell is. It's really good. It's lavender, bergamot, mandarin, sweet orange, geranium. Lavender, bergamot, mandarin, sweet orange, geranium. Okay. So that should help, just help you relax and settle in. I'm already feeling quite relaxed after that. Before I get into the Oscar Wilde story, there's actually another book I just wanted to quickly look at, and it's this one I found at a thrift shop the other day. It's the Library of World Poetry, edited by William Cullen Bryant. It's a really sturdy, hard book, and is actually an inscription in here. To Ian Phelps, on reaching his 21st birthday. To a cherished friend, your friendship is the kind that brings joy to ordinary things. Best wishes for the future. Love always, Sally. November 1978. So I love when I find, that was part of the reason I bought it, because I just love that history, and I love that people used to write in books like that. So the cool thing about this book is it has it's got some illustrations and like letters and things, so it's really cool. I'll find something to read out of here quickly. What's calling to me? Poems of nature. Here's something. The nightingale. Okay. The nightingale. The rose looks out in the valley, and thither will I go, to the rosy vale, where the nightingale sings his song of woe. The virgin is on the riverside, culling the lemons pale. Thither, yes, thither will I go. So to the rosy vale, where the nightingale sings his song of woe. The fairest fruit her hand hath culled, tea is for her lover all. Thither, yes, thither will I go, to the rosy vale where the nightingale sings his song of woe. In her hat of straw, for her gentle swain, she has placed the lemons pale. Thither, yes, thither will I go, to the rosy vale where the nightingale sings his song of woe. Gil Vicente. Thither. I haven't heard that word in a long time. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. But with these old poems and these old stories, I love this old language that comes up in these words that you don't quite know how to use and how they're used in the sentence. So that is the Library of World Poetry, and I may get into this in another video, a bit more depth. So back to the Oscar Wilde compendium, to the magical story of the Fisherman and His Soul. Okay, so I'll just do a bit of a recap for those that are joining in at this video. So there's a fisherman that met this mermaid, and she sang to him for a few nights, and he fell in love with her, but she said that she cannot marry him because he has a human soul. So the fisherman is now on a quest to get rid of his soul somehow. So we're up to the part where he has met this witch that has appeared, and he thinks she might be able to help him with this. So here we go. Thou art the best of witches, cried the young fisherman, and I will surely dance with thee tonight on the top of the mountain. I would indeed that thou hadst asked of me either gold or silver, but such is thy price as thou shalt have it, for it is but a little thing. And he doffed his cap to her and bent his head low, and ran back to the town filled with a great joy. And the witch watched him as he went, and when he had passed from her sight, she entered her cave, and having taken a mirror from a box of carved cedar wood, she set it up on a frame, and burned vervain on lighted charcoal before it, and peered through the coils of the smoke. And after a time, she clenched her hands in anger. He should have been mine, she muttered. I am as fair as she is. And that evening, when the moon had risen, the young fisherman climbed up to the top of the mountain and stood under the branches of the hornbeam. Like a targe of polished metal, the round sea lay at his feet, and the shadows of the fishing boats moved in the little bay. A great owl with yellow sulphurous eyes called to him by his name, but he made it no answer. A black dog ran towards him and snarled. He struck it with a rod of willow, and it went away whining. At midnight, the witches came flying through the air like bats. Phew, they cried as they lit upon the ground. There is someone here we know not. And they sniffed about and chatted to each other and made signs. Last of all came the young witch with her red hair streaming in the wind. She wore a dress of gold tissue embroidered with peacock's eyes, and a little cap of green velvet was on her head. Where is he? Where is he? Shrieked the witches when they saw her. But she only laughed and ran to the hornbeam, and taking the fisherman by the hand, she led him out into the moonlight and began to dance. Round and round they whirled, and the young witch jumped so high that he could see the scarlet heels of her shoes. Then right across the dancers came the sound of the galloping of a horse, but no horse was to be seen, and he felt afraid. Faster, cried the witch when she threw her arms about his neck, and her breath was hot upon his face. Faster, faster, she cried, and the earth seemed to spin beneath his feet, and his brain grew troubled, and a great terror fell on him, as of some evil thing that was watching him. And at last he became aware that under the shadow of a rock there was a figure that had not been there before. It was a man dressed in a suit of black velvet, cut in the Spanish fashion. His face was strangely pale, but his lips were like a proud red flower. He seemed weary and was leaning back, toying in a listless manner with the pommel of his dagger. On the grass beside him lay a plumed hat and a pair of riding gloves gauntleted with gilt lace and sewn with seed pearls wrought in a curious device. A short cloak lined with sables hung from his shoulder, and his delicate white hands were gemmed with rings. Heavy eyelids drooped over his eyes. The young fisherman watched him as one snared in a spell. At last their eyes met, and wherever he danced it seemed to him that the eyes of the man were upon him. He heard the witch laugh and caught her by the waist and whirled her madly round and round. Suddenly a dog bayed in the wood, and the dancers stopped, and going up two by two knelt down and kissed the man's hands. As they did so, a little smile touched his proud lips, as a bird's wings touches the water and makes it laugh. But there was disdain in it. He kept looking at the young fisherman. "Come, let us worship," whispered the witch, as she led him up, and a great desire to do as she besought him seized on him, and he followed her. But when he came close, and without knowing why he did it, he made on his breast the sign of the cross, and called upon thy holy name. No sooner had he done so than the witches screamed like hawks and flew away, and the pallid face that had been watching him twitched with a spasm of pain. The man went over to the little wood and whistled. A jennet with silver trappings came running to meet him, and as he leapt upon the saddle he turned round and looked at the young fisherman sadly. And the witch with the red hair tried to fly away also, but the fisherman caught her by her wrists and held her fast. "Loose me," she cried, "and let me go, for thou hast named what should not be named, and shown the sign that may not be looked at." "Nay," he answered, "but I will not let thee go till thou hast told me the secret." "What secret?" said the witch, wrestling with him like a wild cat, and biting her foam-flecked lips. "Thou knowest," he made answer. Her grass-green eyes grew dim with tears, and she said to the fisherman, "Ask me anything but that." He laughed and held her all the more tightly. And when she saw that she could not free herself, she whispered to him, "Surely I am as fair as the daughter of the sea, and as comely as those that dwell in the blue waters." And she fawned on him and put her face close to his. But he thrust her back, frowning, and said to her, "If thou not keepest the promise thou madest to me, I will slay thee for a false witch." She grew grey as the blossom of the Judas tree, and shuddered. "Be it so," she muttered. "It is thy soul and not mine. Do with it as thou wilt." And she took from her girdle a little knife that had a handle of green viper skin, and gave it to him. "What shall this serve me?" he asked of her, wondering. She was silent for a few moments, and a look of terror came over her face. Then she brushed her hair back from behind her forehead and smiled strangely. She said to him, "What men call the shadow of the body is not the shadow of the body, but is the body of the soul. Stand on the seashore with thy back to the moon, and cut away from around thy feet thy shadow, which is thy soul's body, and bid thy soul leave thee, and it'll do so." The young fisherman trembled. "Is this true?" he muttered. "It is true, and I would that I had not told thee of it," she cried, and she clung to his knees weeping. He put her from him and left her in the rank grass, and going to the edge of the mountain, he placed the knife in his belt and began to climb down. And his soul was within him called out to him and said, "Lo, I have dwelt with thee for all these years, and have been thy servant. Send me not away from thee now, for what evil have I done thee?" And the fisherman laughed. "Thou hast done me no evil, but I have no need of thee," he answered. "The world is wide, and there is heaven also, and hell, and that dim twilight house that lies between. Go wherever thou wilt, but trouble me not, for my love is calling to me. All right. I think I'll leave it there for this session of the Fisherman His Soul and His Soul, and we will pick up from this point of the soul separating and the fisherman, because it does get quite exciting. And now I'm going to play a little song called Harvest Moon by Neil Young, as I feel it is quite appropriate for this story. So I'm just going to play it very softly. Hear what I have to say. Just like children sleeping, we could dream this night away. Let's go dancing in the light. We know where the music's playing. Let's go out and feel the night. See you dance again, because I'm still in love with you on this harvest moon. Because I'm still in love with you, I wanna see you dance again, because I'm still in love with you on this harvest moon. Okay guys, I hope you are nice and relaxed and that you enjoyed this reading and music session, and have a nice restful sleep or rest.